Okay, good afternoon, everyone. You are all at the webinar, Designing the Perfect Dashboard, Simple, Usable, Slick, and Actionable. And this webinar is being brought to you by Usability Research, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our firm in just a moment. So today's webinar will be recorded. The recording will be made available to you not only on our website, but as well as our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and also you will receive an email from GoToWebinar with the recording. If you do have any questions during today's session, simply type them in your upper right-hand corner in your chat box. And then when we do Q&A at the very end, we'll go ahead and go back in the order that we receive them. That will help too if we need to go back and look at slides. You can follow the webinar conversation today on hashtag SituResearch for dashboards. And I want to tell you just a little bit about our firm here at Situated Research. We actually are the owners of two businesses. Situated Research is our parent company, where we conduct usability research and testing on software, video games, and websites. And then we have our sister company, QCamp, where we design, redesign websites. We also do social media marketing campaigns, and we also do marketing materials, so brochures, business cards, banners, etc. So today we have a lot to get through. We're going to talk about designing usability into dashboards, and we're going to be looking at what makes a dashboard actionable, as well as looking at customized home pages. We're also going to look at calls to action and how to simplify those. We're going to talk about the novice user versus the complexity user. We're going to talk about data visualizations. We're going to talk about good UI versus bad UI, good usability and functionality, workflows, etc. So we have a lot to get through this afternoon. So the way I like to start this webinar is to kind of give a definition of what dashboards are. Everybody has a different definition when we work with companies who are designing dashboards for their software. They all have a different definition. So let's make sure that we're all on the same page this afternoon. A dashboard is a user interface that presents information to users in a simple way. Plain, simple, to the point. That is what a dashboard is to do. To present a lot of information in a very simple way. So we want to talk about analytical dashboards right now. And analytical dashboards can display operational or strategic data. It's a lot of information in one place, a lot of data. And so we always suggest using the drill down functionality, just because this allows users to explore more of the data and to get different insights into each piece of data. Also, we suggest for different user groups that we require different types of dashboards. Some users may be accustomed to seeing dashboards with barcode, or they like to see pie charts. A good example of this is that a marketing manager may need both a strategic and operational view of their data, where possibly we can create two separate dashboards, one for strategic and one for operational data. So here's an example of a great dashboard that we found online. And another thing to think about as well when you're designing a dashboard is to make it mobile friendly as well. So we've got our mobile devices, our iPads, our trackpads, our screens, our desktops. This information here on this dashboard is just laid out very simply, and it just makes sense to users. Plus it's slick looking. So how do we get to create a great dashboard? We start brainstorming with our teams. Then we start drawing out how we think it should look. And then we end up with the end result. And the end result may not be what we talked about at our brainstorming stage of the game, because it developed into something else, something better when we did our user testing and research. But To go back to that, a lot of companies that we've worked with don't even do user research, and we're brought in at the very end because they feel, okay, now we've developed something, we have something to show. Now user testing can occur, and people just don't understand that it's more cost effective to bring us in at the very beginning. And just because we've helped a lot of companies design their dashboards, so we've seen repeated mistakes over and over again. We know what users are looking for. So it's best just to pick our brains at that brainstorming process instead of developing something and almost ready to go to market and then bringing us in. So some key questions to ask: who is going to use the dashboard? And then what actions are going to be taken as a result of this dashboard? So we give them this data, we build this dashboard up, they can read the data, they understand it, now what? And then how will it help the user work better, smarter, and faster? User adoption weighs heavily on the ease with which the dashboard can be used and the corresponding actions the users will make. Makes sense, right? So we use that drill down method during the brainstorming stage. And dashboard usability really demands careful drilling down on how the business or units function together, what business processes are involved, and who's going to use the dashboard and why. So the first steps are to gather information. So I gave you a common definition of what a dashboard is. However, what is the definition for your dashboard that you're going to be creating? And then what are the different cases where people will be accessing and using this dashboard? What are the different scenarios? So we list those out. Then we also talk about your return on investment for the dashboard. We talk about sizing considerations. We talk about data definitions, and then we create blueprints. So who's usually involved in this brainstorming process? We suggest your IT team, definitely, your development team. Management most likely will be involved, and your business leaders as well. And that can be even your marketing department too. We find that marketing departments really want to be in because they want to make sure that the branding of the company plays throughout the dashboard design. So you want IT in your development team because they're building the dashboard. So we really need to make sure that any functionality that we come up with from management, that they understand what we want them to do and what functions we need to have happen. And then our business leaders, they have their ROI agenda, their sales agenda, and that's all important as well to play a role in the design process. So we have many meetings with everyone that's involved. We do a discovery phase. It usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to complete, and that includes brainstorming, creating mock-ups, and then we also do workshops where we will use the whiteboard, workflows, supporting content, data definitions, etc. So where are the usability experts, though, in this process? I kind of put us in there when I said we like to do this, this, and that. But if we're not brought in at all, like I said, we're usually brought in at the very end, which is not cost effective or time effective either. Bringing us in throughout this whole development process really helps to save money, and that's the bottom line. And time, but money is most important. So as usability experts, we come in, we help you with the brainstorming, we do the expert reviews, we do the testing, and during the brainstorming part, it's critical for us to be involved for the different things I just said in the last slide. But as far as being brought in at the middle, which some companies do, they want us to conduct an expert review. And so basically what that is where one of our experts, PhDs, looks at either your mock-ups or they look at the actual product. And they write a 60 to 150 page review of it, telling you what areas you did really well in, that's going to work for users and what areas are not, and then some solutions to fix those problem areas. So I will tell you, I will be completely honest with you. So our projects, we have at the testing phase at the very end, once a product is to completion, ready to go to the market. Out of all of our projects, I would say about 40% of them are at this point, and then they bring us in. The other 50% are expert reviews, and then 10% were brought in at the beginning stages with the brainstorming, to be completely honest with you. So, and I stress all the time during these webinars, bring us in at the beginning, because it makes sense and it'll help you, you know, from the very start, not make certain mistakes that we've seen over and over again. But from those numbers, you can tell 10% of the time we're brought in at the beginning. 40% of the time we're brought in just to do an expert review. And then, which is very helpful as well, because we can take that expertise that we've learned from other projects and put it towards yours as well, and kind of tell you what we've seen and what we've seen work and not work, and then give you solutions, which is helpful. And then the other 50% is at the end. So I'm just going to keep stressing in these webinars, bring us in at the very beginning, throughout the entire process. Just makes sense. So we've talked about designing usability in the dashboards, and now we're going to talk about the differences between actionable dashboards and customized home pages. So with actionable dashboards, they help users to see data in an easy to understand format. We were working with a client a few years ago where we were developing a piece, they developed a piece of software where they were presenting data not only to patients, but also to medical staff and physicians to help them figure out how they could be more effective with patients, and patients got to see their data as well. So there are a few different user groups. We had our physicians, our doctors, we had our hospitals, and we had our patients. So we had to create different dashboards for each of them because they each didn't have access to all the data. But we also had to present it in a way where the patients would understand the data, the physicians would understand, and the hospitals would understand. So we had to create a way for our users not to get bored while looking at the dashboard and exploring the data. So when we create dashboards or help to do that, we like to have some interaction involved. We want you to interact with the data. So sliders can be a useful tool to help users to perform what-if analysis just by adjusting the data to see the impact decision results. Alerts, trends, patterns are also important, especially even for the patients in this scenario, to kind of see, hey, this is what my cholesterol was last year, this is what it is this year, wow, I'm improving, or gee, oh geez, I'm screwed, I need to fix this. So gauges also help, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, and then drill down charts, because they allow even the least tech-savvy user to understand the data analysis. It's so bad when we see people create dashboards that are supposed to present data to people, and people don't understand the data. They don't understand what they're viewing. So it's important to make sure that it works and makes sense for your users. So with actionable dashboards, there are three types. We have operational, we have strategic/executive, and we have analytical. So for operational dashboards, these are the ones that display data that facilitate the operational side of a business. So like website monitoring, load speeds for each page of your website. That would be an operational dashboard. So you want to monitor the nerve center of your operation. Strategic dashboards, they provide KPIs, or key performance indicators, that a company's executive team needs to track on a periodic basis. So these should provide the executive team with high-level overview of the state of the business altogether, with opportunities that the business faces. So some examples of this data are periodic revenue, costs, headcount, sales pipeline, etc. And then we have our analytical dashboards, which we've kind of already talked about. They display operational or strategic data. Usually we suggest doing drill down functionality, just makes sense to kind of make sure that that data is presented in a way where different user groups can understand it. And then the example that I gave with the marketing manager needing both strategic and operational. So we created 2 separate dashboards to do that. Now, I talk a little bit about a customized homepage in this webinar because that's a dashboard as well. A customized homepage is a static page made for a certain group of users. It's not interactive and it doesn't upload data in real time, but it's still a dashboard that presents information. So now I want to talk about creating simplicity and clear calls to action. So for simplicity, we're talking about setting clear goals. So when we do that brainstorming sessions, we write down all the goals that each department has for the dashboard. And then we tell a clear story of how users are going to be using the dashboard in each of the scenarios. So we know what you want presented, but the bottom line is to keep it simple. And that's kind of our motto here at Situate Research. We keep our word, which is fun. But the next part of our motto or mission statement is that we keep it simple. Simplicity is key to a good user experience. It gives the biggest impact on users. It makes everything easy to understand. And then the data is presented in a clean and clear manner. And it just makes sense, and it's helpful and useful. If it's not, users are going to get frustrated, they're not going to use the tool, and they're going to be mad. So some tips on making your dashboard simple. Break that complex data down into bite-sized chunks, and then just provide summaries and move the details to their own sections. Just don't overwhelm users with too much information, but allow them to dig at their own pace. And put yourself in the user's shoes and ask yourself if your presentation is understandable and on target. So creating calls to action, you want to make sure that your calls to action are crystal clear, they're strong, and that you actually research your users and what they want. So now we're going to talk about compromising between simplicity for novice users and complex power users. You have to find a balance because you're going to have every type of user probably. You're going to have the users who really want to dig deep and get that information. You're going to have some people who just want a summary and they don't need anything more than that. So balance is key when you're designing your dashboard for different user types, but you have to know who the user types are, what the scenarios are that they're going to use your dashboard. Makes sense, it's important. Don't sacrifice complexity and don't overdo simplicity. You have to know who your users are, so research who they are, and then design different sections of the dashboard for your different user types. So now we want to talk about choosing data visualizations and appropriate color psychology that makes sense. This is my favorite section of the webinar because we work with a lot of different types of businesses where they're creating dashboards for their software. And every time this is a point that gets discussed too much. And a lot of businesses don't listen to our advice and do what they want because it goes with their company branding, et cetera. And we'll get into that now. So data visualizations. This means that we want to make the dashboard slick and catch the user's eyes. We have to have a purpose for this, though. It has to relate to your business. And we do bring in graphic designers to help us with this process. Color psychology is huge. We have fought, I'm just going to be honest, we fought with so many marketing departments when it's come to the colors to use on a dashboard because of their branding. we know that we want to keep the branding and marketing the same as within the business. So we look at your company logo, we look at your print materials. The part where we have trouble with, especially with marketing departments, is when the color red, the color green, or the color yellow is involved. Marketing departments seem to want to overdo these colors within the dashboard, and they don't understand that these colors have meaning. Red means stop, caution, don't go any further, stop now. You're doing something wrong, something's bad. Yellow means caution, green means go, we all know this. But every color has a meaning. And so if you have red in your logo, yes, of course, we can use it throughout the dashboard, but not as often as the marketing department would want us to use it. And it's because of the meaning, because of the color psychology. It's what people associate with. So if you have bar graphs with red bars, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is bad. We've hit a bad level or whatever. And I'm going to show you examples now of that. So here are some data visualizations. On the left, we have a dial, and we use this all the time. Green means that's the, the spot where you want to be, and red means, we're off. We're not quite there yet. And you can see that on the bottom as well, the sales, marketing, and support. You can see the different colors. So the one that says closed sales to date on the left, we're all the way at 0. So from 0 to 500,000 is in the red zone, because that means if you're in that area, you're doing bad, you need to change something, something's not right. In the middle, marketing, we have green, orange, and blue. Those are all good calming colors, so no alarms there. Same with support. If you go to the upper right where it says dashboard color picker, these are some colors to choose from for your dashboard, and each color has a different meaning. So a great way to understand color psychology. Here in the upper left-hand corner, your KPI status, you can see the sales mark, and you can see that it's in the green. So what does that tell you? Okay, a few of you are answering. That tells you that your sales are good. You're doing good. Your percent of market is good. You're in the green, but you're in the lower green, so you may want to work on that a little bit. A budget, you're in the lower yellow, almost to red, so you want to work on that. And then people, you're kind of in the middle of the yellow and green. So you may want to do a little bit more to get in the green. So that's what people think of. It was any of those were in the red, you'd be like, oh, shoot, we need to do a lot of work. And the bottom picture is, well, the project management percent complete. Typically, you're going to see the red, the yellow, the green. Green means good, yellow means need to work on it, red means, uh-oh, we've got a huge problem. But you also want to make sure that your dashboards are slick and not boring. So as you can see, the top image is of a dashboard in a vehicle. Very slick, looks good. The bottom display dashboard is confusing. It's ugly, and it doesn't make sense. So you really, here they were trying to incorporate colors from their logo, so black and red. So you see finance, and you see average entry variance in days, and you see the red bar that goes all the way to the light. Well, what does that even mean? Is this a bad thing because the bar is red now? What does the light gray mean? Well, we have no idea. So very confusing. Doesn't make sense. So it has to make sense, it has to be simple, it has to look slick. So let's talk about distinguishing good user interfaces from good usability functionality. So a good interface, you want to highlight any changes. You want to then go to your keyboard shortcuts and your buttons that make sense. So everything on the interface has to make sense to the end user. The end user can't make heads or tails of the dashboard. You didn't accomplish your goal for the dashboard, and the dashboard's aimed useless. So you want to make sure that you are creating a good user interface. And when it comes to good usability, you want to make sure that your goals are met, that you do not have to have any explanations within the dashboard. Please, please, please do not have hoverovers that have little pop-up bubbles that tell you what each button does. Don't do it. If you have to do that, you know that you have bad usability. Get some usability experts in there ASAP. And you want to make sure that your users understand the information. Dashboards are developed, their main purpose, in order to present data to users in different ways, so that any level of user can understand it. So if you accomplish this, you have a usable dashboard. So I kind of want to talk about workflows here. So when we are creating dashboards, we like to also do rapid iterative testing. And what this is just rounds of testing, then tweaking, then revisions. So we especially do this when we do, if we're brought in at the brainstorming process, at the beginning of a project, we don't really have to do this. It's when we're brought in to do an expert review, is when we'll do rapid iterative testing. And so we just basically test the dashboard or the software, give that feedback back to the developers. They tweak it, and then we revise it and look at it again. The next step that we do is interview users. So this would be done at the beginning of the process. We want to understand the user's goals. We then want to look at the users who are influenced by their environment and then figure out their previous knowledge as well. That's key in developing a dashboard, because if you know their previous knowledge and you know that that's the typical user that's going to use it, then there are no questions, and there are things, to say, hey, we don't have to present this data, they already know it. Or we don't have to present this type of information, they get it from somewhere else. Or they are very knowledgeable in this area, we don't have to explain anything. And then we do task analysis. So how are users performing these tasks currently? How are they getting this data? What are they trying to accomplish by getting this data? So now we want to look at user scenarios. So we interview the users. So we talk to the users, the different user types. We then write up scenarios. We literally write them out. So we say, okay, John Joe will be using this dashboard for X, Y, and Z. So in the example that I gave at the very beginning of today's session, I talked about the software that we helped create a few years ago, where we were giving data to patients, physicians, and hospitals. So 3 different user groups. So we literally wrote out, we learned who the patients were, so we interviewed some of them. We interviewed some physicians, and we interviewed some hospitals. So we figured out who those users were. Then we literally wrote out scenarios where patients would be logging in and getting their data. So we had things like heart disease, heart monitoring, cholesterol, thyroidism, all of these different things that people would be worried about: their weight, weight gain, blood counts, things like that. So these were different scenarios. For the physicians, we did the same thing, and for the hospitals, we did the same thing. It took about 2 weeks. We coincided that with the interviews of the users. But then what that gave us was some good information to help us to prioritize the scenarios from the most important to the least. And that helped us with the design process of the dashboard to help figure out, okay, what's most important to patients? What data do they need to see right away? What data can be kind of hidden in the drill down method, but not hidden to the point where they couldn't view it, because there were other scenarios where patients need to view that information. So just prioritizing everything really helped out a lot. So here at Situated Research, we talk about situated action. Okay, this is just contextualizing the use. The notion that people's behavior is contextualized. So the situation is a very important factor in determining what people are going to do. In the extreme view, this is the idea that you can't generalize and predict people's behavior from one situation to the next. So this suggests an approach to usability, which says to understand each user's, or more commonly, each organization's specific and detailed needs in designing software for them, by carefully examining how they work and how situational and organizational factors fit into that process. That's key and important in understanding, okay, we want to create this dashboard, we want to create software that users can use. Can we think of every situation possible? No. And that's why we have to interview users. We have to write out scenarios where they're going to be using the software or the dashboard. And then figure out what do they like to see, what don't they like to see, what currently are they seeing, where are they getting the data from, et cetera. What are they going to use this data for? So personas really are very helpful in this process. And a lot of times, like I said, 10% of the time we're brought in at the brainstorming part, which needs to switch and be like 50 to 60% of the time. But right now it's 10% of the time, has been since 2008. But even if we're not brought in at the beginning, we're brought in at that expert review in the middle where you already have a product or a mock-up ready for us to look at, and we have an expert look at it and give that feedback. We can do personas then as well. It's when we're brought in at the very end that's kind of too late, unless we're redesigning, which occurs probably, I don't know, 30 to 40% of the time, I'd say. So personas are so important because traditional personas just attempt to humanize your users and place them into segments. So we've got, in that example, we've got patients, physicians, hospitals. But then we kind of put faces to them, and I'll be honest, sometimes we put little cartoon character faces just to be funny, to lighten up the mood, because it's a lot of work to design a dashboard. So we put faces to the users and the user types and the segments. And we get to dig deeper because we feel like we're actually have a person that's that user. So it puts a face to it. It makes it more humanized. Developers and management love it. But it helps us to dig deeper and focus not only on a person and situation, but provide insight to their typical behaviors and the context for the use of the product. And the results are cohesive, meaningful identities paired with use cases and scenarios, and these help your product teams to make relevant and appropriate design decisions, which is pretty important when you're spending millions and millions of dollars in some cases on creating a good dashboard for your software. So something that we added on is a bonus section to this webinar, and it's 10 tips for UI design success. So this wasn't advertised in the webinar, but if you guys are still here, which there are a few hundred of you still here, which is awesome, I'm going to give you 10 tips for UI design success. So real quickly, an overview of dashboards. It's a difficult part of creating an application. Let's face it, if you've ever done it. Online business applications to quick, simple mobile apps. You have to know what data to present and what not to. And the most important thing is what not to present. So here are 10 tips for you to follow. Number 1, know your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Every application has them. Every application has a purpose. If you know your KPIs, it's key to the success. Key focus of interface design is important as well. Tip 2, keep it light, clean, and simple. When in doubt, simplify. If you have to have a hover over on a button to give an explanation, you're doing something wrong. It's not simple. Never, ever, ever have hover overs. I hate those. And I can't tell you how many times people do that, and users, when we do our testing, are just like, really? This icon doesn't make any sense to me. And so I had to hover over and read what this button does. Creates frustration. Break down functions into core categories, and then use those categories to determine interface design. Categorize your features and don't have clutter. Tip 3, use color, but remember your color psychology. Use colors to alert and notify users, tasks, activities, features, and more. Use predictable and common colors. Red means danger, orange and yellow means caution, green means go. Tip number 4 is don't ever, ever, ever reinvent the wheel. If you have a homepage design, stick with it. If you have common features within your application, stick with them. Social media feeds, etc. Left align menu navigation, don't design from the ground up. UI patterns are important. Tip number 5, popular platform designs. Figure out how will your users interact with your application. Know where they're going to use it. If you are developing a website, the homepage, have a responsive website and use most widely used platforms to build it on. So we talked about homepage design earlier and dashboard design, same thing. Tip number 6, ask your audience, poll your users. What do your users care about? What do they want to see? Application developers make mistakes every single day of the week. Don't make your users guess what your application is supposed to do, or what sections are supposed to do, or what buttons are supposed to do. Tip number 7, give fewer options. Keeps it simple. Fewer options are better. You have fewer problems. Then you can balance between usability and power. You can balance between those novice users and those complex users. And then you can add advanced features if need be. Tip number 8 is sort, filter, and organize. You can display a lot of data, but in a way that is simple and makes sense. That drill down method is awesome. Use it. You can do tables with tons of information, but avoid creating a cluttered interface. And you can let users choose what they'd like to see and what they don't want to see. We did that option in that medical software that we helped develop, where physicians, they could see a summary overview or they could see more detailed information if they clicked on a certain option. Tip number 9, use that breakdown of tasks method. Break long tasks into short, simple steps. Figure out, are your users abandoning your shopping cart and your forms? Are they abandoning the software right away? Are they abandoning the dashboard right away? Figure out what the issue is. Shorten tasks from 20 steps to 2. Just as an example, we helped to create a dashboard for an e-commerce website last year, and it took 20 steps to go through the checkout process. We eliminated all those steps and brought it down to 2. We found that users were giving up during the process, and we were able to eliminate 18 of those steps and brought it down to 2 so users could check out very quickly and efficiently. And oh my God, that boosts sales like crazy, because I don't remember what the percent was. It's probably almost 100% because people were not finishing the checkout process and leaving. They were being asked too much information. So these are all things to think about. And tip number 10, always get feedback. Provide constant help and feedback. Don't make assumptions. Don't let your development team say, oh yeah, I've created a dashboard before. This is what happened. This is what users want. They never do user testing, ever, ever, ever. So don't give in to that. Do brief tutorials if needed, but very brief, and make them fun. and just support your users. Give them that support. So today we've talked about all these different topics, and we have about 20 minutes left. So we'll do Q&A in just a moment, but I want to leave you with our information. So we're Situated Research. We're in the suburbs of Chicago. There's our phone number, email address, website, Facebook page, and the hashtag to follow today's discussion, Situ Research Dash. Again, my name is Michelle Sherrod. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning, but I'm the VP and co-founder here at Situated Research and our sister company, QCamp. If you have a dashboard that you're creating or a piece of software, please think about contacting us for, if anything, an expert review. Or if you're just in the starting process, please bring us in. That's when you should do it. Save on your ROI, get that up there. Save on money and time on revisions, and think of us. You can go to our website and see examples of our work as well. And if you guys ever need a website redesigned or a new website or social media marketing campaign or any marketing materials, think of QCamp, our sister company. That's just QCamp, www.qcamp.com. and situatedresearch.com. So check us out. We'd love to help you out. And if you guys have questions, just send us an email. We're really good with email. We'll get back to you within the next day. So thank you so much for attending. I hope you guys learned a lot about designing good, simple, and easy to use dashboards today. So thank you so much and have a great day.